The night Jeremiah threw out his wife, the sky over South Atlanta cracked open and poured. Rain hammered the tin awning of their duplex like a drummer losing patience. The porch light flickered, catching the silver arc of Nia's wedding band as it rolled off the wet steps and vanished into the gutter. "Take your bags and go," Jeremiah said, his voice iron flat. He stood in the doorway in a new navy blazer, the price tag string still poking out near the sleeve. Behind him, a woman in a red dress, Monique, leaned one shoulder against the hall wall, glossy lips set in a small, satisfied curve. Nia didn't move. Her Ankara head wrap had loosened and slipped back, curls at her temples soaked and clinging to her brown skin. She held a cracked blue suitcase by the handle. The zipper teeth were missing in 2 places. The suitcase had been her mother's. "Jeremiah, it's midnight," Nia said quietly. "Where am I supposed to go?" Jeremiah's eyes skated past her, out to the slick street, to the idling black sedan Monique had arrived in. "Anywhere that isn't here." Monique laced her fingers around Jeremiah's arm. "Baby, don't let her guilt you," she said, eyes dancing over Nia like a customer appraising a thrift store sweater. "You told me she never believed in you. You told me she laughed when you said management was coming." Lightning stuttered along the clouds. Nia swallowed. "You're leaving our marriage because a promotion might come?" Jeremiah tugged his arm free, jaw tight. "Because I refuse to be dragged down by someone who won't stand beside me. Monique believes in my future." "She's not." He flung his hand at once taking in Nia's damp sandals, the suitcase, the peeling paint by the stairs. "This." Nia absorbed the word like a slap. She looked past him into the small living room they'd painted yellow the year they married. The couch they found at a church sale. The framed photograph of her late mother on the bookcase, smiling like a promise. The tiny philodendron cutting she'd coaxed to life in a mason jar. "Jeremiah," she said again more softly, as if talking to a boy who'd once walked her home after choir practice, not a man who'd changed his cologne and stopped wearing his wedding ring. "When did we stop talking?" Jeremiah's eyes hardened. "When you kept secrets." The word hung there. Nia's fingers tightened on the handle. She thought of a black envelope in the bottom of her dresser drawer. She thought of words her mother had whispered the night before she died. "When your heart is tested, you'll know who you are. You'll know what to do." Monique tilted her chin at the suitcase. He said go. A neighbor's door creaked. Old Mr. McBride peeked out, his white undershirt glowing in the rainlight. The twin boys from next door, kids Nia sometimes gave leftover puff-puff, pressed their faces to their window. The city watched without blinking. Nia nodded once. She bent, scooped up the suitcase and stepped into the rain. It soaked her wrap in seconds, plastered her skirt to her legs. She paused at the end of the porch and turned. "I hope your promotion is everything you think it is," she said. "I hope it keeps you warm when it's quiet." Monique laughed. "He won't be cold." Jeremiah lifted his chin. "We're done." Nia's eyes flicked to the brass key she'd kept on a thin chain at her neck for 5 years. She slid it free, walked back and set it on the porch rail. For a heartbeat, their fingers almost touched. Then she turned, stepped down and walked into the storm. The sedan door opened and Monique's driver hooted a short laugh. "You see that?" He slammed it shut and the car purred away, red taillights smearing across the wet street. Jeremiah stood in the doorway until the car disappeared, then closed the door without looking back. Nia walked. Rain washed the street into a river that carried broken leaves and her breath. She turned onto Metropolitan, past the shuttered barbers with the barber pole still turning, past Mama Joe's Jollof and Wings where the O in Joe's blinked and died. At the bus stop, a billboard for Horizon Foods, Jeremiah's job, beamed down in cheerful colors. "We keep your family fed." A brown-skinned kid and his grandma shared a plate of fried okra under bright kitchen lights. Nia lifted her face to the rain and closed her eyes. A city bus hissed to a stop. The driver took one look at her, wet, carrying a suitcase, and nodded her on. "Don't worry about it, sis," he said, waving off her hand as she reached for her purse. "Sit. You okay?" "I will be," Nia said. She took a seat by the window and watched the dark slide by. Her phone buzzed once in her pocket. A single text, "Anti-Funk, child, it's time. The trust unlocks at dawn. Call me when you can do so safely." Nia tucked the phone away, heartbeat lifting like a bird hearing its name. At the corner of Ralph David Abernathy, 2 teenagers sprinted for shelter under a gas station canopy. A man in a soaked Falcons hoodie danced to music only he could hear. Headlights carved bright tunnels through the storm. The bus rocked and rolled and kept moving. She got off near West End, pulled her suitcase under the station overhang and dialed. Andy Funk answered on the first ring. Her voice was warm oil steady. My daughter. I'm here, Nia said, and the rain softened to a hush in her ears. It happened. He told me to go. Auntie exhaled, a sound like a prayer wrapped in breath. I'm sorry for the sting. But maybe the rain washes what you shouldn't carry. Are you ready? Nia looked at her reflection in the station's dark glass. Head wrap wilting, mascara smudged at the edges of her eyes, chin raised anyway. Yes. At sunrise, Auntie said, you will come to the downtown office. Suite 41 on the 40th floor. I will be waiting. The board meeting is at 9. By then the legal lock expires and the chair passes to you. Nia's fingers tightened around the phone. I haven't seen the board since Mama's memorial. They have seen your reports. They have honored Adi's wishes, Auntie said, using her mother's name like a blessing. You worked quietly just as she asked. You built those community kitchens, you raised logistics from the ash heap, you learned the bones of the company from the warehouse up. This is not a surprise. This is a coronation. Nia glanced up at the billboard for Horizon Foods again, that smiling grandma spooning okra. Horizon Foods. A subsidiary of Adeyemi Global Holdings, her mother's company, one of a dozen brands tucked beneath its wide umbrella. The place where Jeremiah clocked in every morning at 6:30, chest out, hoping for a supervisor's badge and a corner office with a window that faced anything but the dumpsters. He works for us, Nia said softly. The words were not triumph. They were a note on a staff she had not realized she could play. And he paused. Is he safe? He is fine, Nia said. He has help. Auntie's voice gentled. Child power is a hot iron. You must hold it with a cloth of mercy. But don't drop it either. Come at sunrise. The line clicked off. Nia sat on the suitcase and breathed. She remembered a Saturday 2 years ago, the day her mother's lawyer had knocked on their door with a stack of non-disclosure forms and a sealed envelope stamped with a wax crest. A small, bright sun. She remembered Jeremiah's face, uncertain and eager, asking questions with fists in his pockets. She remembered how she'd kept that envelope closed for a week, then opened it alone at the kitchen table. Her mother's careful handwriting had spelled out a life Nia hadn't asked for, a life placed in her hands like a fragile, living thing. Ledwell Adiz had written. Do not perform. Built. Nia rose. She had one choice, spend the night with a church friend or in a hotel. Pride and prudence linked arms and chose the hotel. She walked 3 blocks to a modest place with an AC hum and a front desk clerk who slid over a key card with a sleepy smile. Storm pricing? He teased, then caught her expression and softened. Kidding. You're good. In the small, neat room, Nia peeled off wet clothes, wrapped herself in a towel that smelled like lemon cleaner, and stood at the window. The rain drifted to mist. Streetlights turned the wet roads into black glass. Somewhere in this city, a man she had loved was rehearsing a speech to a new, expensive mirror. Somewhere else, a boardroom long table waited with a leather chair at its head. She dressed in dry leggings and a soft sweatshirt, sat on the bed, and took out the black envelope from the bottom of her suitcase. She ran her finger over the wax sun, the last one she'd kept sealed for a moment just like this. When she broke it, a metal card slid into her palm. Matte black, just her initials etched at one corner, N.A. The card was a key not to hotel rooms but to floors most people never saw. She breathed out. The clock on the nightstand flashed 1:12 a.m. Her phone lit up with a new message. Unknown number, you don't know me, Ms. Adeyemi, but you will. Meet me before you go upstairs. Coffee shop on the first floor. It's about Horizon Foods, and your husband. Nia stared at the message until the letters stopped blurring. She stood, heart drumming. At 5:50 a.m., Nia stepped into the lobby of the glass tower downtown as dawn yawned over Atlanta. Her curls, now freed from the wrap, framed her face in a soft halo. She wore a simple black dress, low heels, a small gold locket at her throat. The revolving door sent a whisper of cool air up her sleeves. Workers in reflective vests crossed the plaza, their boots leaving dark commas on wet stone. The coffee shop smelled like cinnamon and new beginnings. A barista with box braids and tired eyes slid a cup across the counter. For Nia, she said. On the house. Nia turned. A man in a gray raincoat stood in the corner, hands in pockets. Mid-40s. Nigerian accent threaded through his words when he spoke. Ms. Adeyemi. My name is Kelechi. I used to be operations director at Horizon Foods. Until I found something I wasn't supposed to see. Nia's skin prickled. What did you find? Kelechi glanced over her shoulder toward the elevators. A theft. Bigger than a promotion. Bigger than a marriage. Money vanishing through fake vendors. And a name on the approvals that will break your heart. Nia set the coffee down. Her hand was steady only because she commanded it. Say the name. Kelechi's eyes softened with pity. Jeremiah Johnson. The elevator chimed. Upstairs, the boardroom doors were about to open. Down here, a storm she had not seen coming gathered under a bright cafe light. Nia lifted her chin, every part of her suddenly, painfully awake. Show me, she said. And then the lobby doors burst open and Jeremiah, drenched, wild-eyed, shirt wrinkled like regret, stumbled into the cafe and saw her standing with Kelechi. He froze, rain dripping from his lashes, and his mouth formed her name without sound as the barista dropped a spoon that clattered, bright and loud, on the tiled floor. The spoon's clang hung in the air, thin and bright as a warning bell. Jeremiah's eyes swept from Kelechi to Nia, confusion curdling into something darker. He looked like he hadn't slept, like the storm had blown straight through him and left the door open. The collar of his shirt sat crooked. His tie was missing. He took one step toward Nia and stopped as Kelechi shifted slightly, protective. What are you doing here? Jeremiah asked, breathless. Nia, why are you with, who is this? Kelechi didn't answer him. He held Nia's gaze. The elevator to Horizon's executive floor is badge only. If we're going to talk, we should do it now. I brought proof. Jeremiah's mouth worked. Proof of what? Nia kept her voice low. Sit, Jeremiah. He blinked, surprised at the calm in her tone. He pulled out a chair, sat, then seemed startled by his own obedience. The barista pretended not to watch, though her eyes tracked them in the reflection of the espresso machine. Kelechi slid a slim laptop from his raincoat and opened it between them. The screen bloomed with spreadsheets and vendor lists. I was operations director until 7 months ago, he said. We were bleeding money and our warehouse crews were working overtime with broken forklifts. I audited approvals for third-party logistics. I found a vendor called Meridian Solutions. No warehouse, no drivers of record, just invoices. He tapped a line of numbers. 186 payments in 9 months. Millions. He clicked again. A series of approvals appeared. The digital signatures were unmistakable. J. Johnson. Jeremiah flinched. That's my login. But I didn't. He shook his head, grip tightening on the table's edge. I don't touch vendor approvals. My role is shift supervision. I barely approve time-off requests. Your credentials authorize the payments, Kelechi said. Sometimes at 2 in the morning. I'm asleep at 2 in the morning, Jeremiah said. Usually. Usually? Nia asked. His jaw flexed. Sometimes I couldn't sleep. I go downstairs, watch TV. He swallowed. Monique would be up late. She works in marketing, you know that. She had a lot of calls. Nia kept her face still. She hadn't known where Monique worked. Last night she hadn't asked. Kelechi pinched zoom on a metadata field. The approvals came from an IP address tied to a condominium in Midtown. Very nice building. Unit registered to a Mr. Richard Carver. Jeremiah frowned. The vice president? He's over distribution. And an investor in Meridian Solutions, Kelechi said softly. On paper it is buried under 2 shells and a cousin in Decatur. But I've been around, these hands have lifted too many pallets not to feel the weight of a lie. He flicked to another window. A company registry appeared with director names. One leaped out and sat there chilling the air. Monica C. Carver. Nia's voice was barely a whisper. Monique. Jeremiah recoiled as if from a strobe light. His lips parted, closed. No, he said too quickly to be convincing. No, that's... She said her last name was Carter. With a T. Kelechi's eyes held sympathy, not pity. She lied. Or someone lied for her. Jeremiah looked at Nia, then truly looked for the first time in months. Maybe he expected to find the woman on the porch, pleading for conversation. What he saw was a woman with rain-damp curls now arranged with quiet intention. A woman whose stillness wasn't surrender but poise. He seemed to hear the distance between them, measured in all the things he had not asked. What does this have to do with you? He asked Kelechi, voice rough. I took this to compliance, Kelechi said. I took it to the internal hotline. 2 days later my key card didn't work. They called it a reorg. He angled the laptop. But I kept these. Why come to me? Nia asked. Because you care about people who don't sit at the corner of the table, Kelechi said simply. I've watched you for 2 years, quietly visiting community kitchens under that same building. He nodded at the ceiling. You never asked for a camera. You asked for numbers. You brought and counted pallets yourself. Jeremiah stared between them. You know her? Kelechi gave a small nod. From work we do for the city. She doesn't make noise, but things move when she touches them. A muscle jumped in Jeremiah's cheek. You could have come to me, he told Kelechi, almost pleading. I'm not a thief. Kelechi didn't flinch. I tried. You were difficult to reach when you got the new friend. Jeremiah flinched. His face shifted, layers sliding, pride, shame, anger, confusion. He turned to Nia. Whatever this is, I didn't know. I swear. He stopped. What are you doing in this building? Nia held his gaze. She heard Andy's voice. Power is a hot iron. Hold it with mercy. I'm here for a meeting. He let out a humorless breath. What kind of meeting happens on the 40th floor? Before Nia could answer, the coffee shop door hissed open. Two men in tailored suits entered together, all polished shoes and clipped haircuts. Horizon's private security, not the kind that nodded from lobby desks. They scanned the room, eyes landing on Kelechi and then on Jeremiah, then on Nia, a second longer than polite. The taller one approached with a practiced smile that didn't climb anywhere near his eyes. Miss Johnson? He asked, gaze flicking to Jeremiah and back to Nia. Mr. Carver would like a word upstairs before your shift, Jeremiah. And Mr. Kelechi, is it? We're going to need that company laptop back. It's mine, Kelechi said. Purchased after my termination. You downloaded proprietary data, the shorter guard said. We can handle this quietly, but we do need to handle it. Kelechi's hand stayed open on the table. Come. If I hand it over now, will it go to compliance? Or to a shredder with a pretty name? The taller guard's smile thinned. Let's not make this difficult. Jeremiah stood too quickly, chair legs scraping the floor. I'll go, he said, not looking at Monique or Carver or anyone who wasn't there. He looked only at Nia. But I need you to believe me. I didn't steal. Belief wasn't a switch Nia could flip. It was a bridge rebuilt plank by plank. She didn't offer it. She offered something else. Tell me the truth, she said. All of it. Jeremiah swallowed. Carver promoted me last month. Acting floor manager, he called it. Said if I wanted to keep moving, I had to show I could be flexible. He invited me to a condo for strategy nights. Monique was there. Sometimes there were others. They drank. They talked about growth, about faster approvals. They laughed about how slow the old heads were. Sometimes they handed me a tablet and asked me to log in so they could run a demo on the approval system. I thought it was harmless. He shook his head. I wanted the badge so bad I didn't ask questions. You handed them the keys, Kelechi said, gentle but not soft. Jeremiah closed his eyes, pain cracking across his face. I know. The shorter guard reached for Kelechi's laptop. Sir. Kelechi slid the laptop toward Nia without warning. Then let's make sure this reaches the right hands, he said. The room stilled. The barista stopped wiping the counter. The taller guard stepped forward, palm out. Ma'am? Nia didn't move. If there's a real process, we'll follow it, she said, voice steady. But not under pressure in a coffee shop. She looked at Jeremiah. Go with them. Don't sign anything. Don't put your hands on another tablet, ever. Ask for a lawyer. He stared at her, something like gratitude unfurling behind the fear. Nia, We're done talking here, the taller guard said smoothly, angling his body between them. Mr. Johnson now. Jeremiah hesitated, then allowed himself to be guided. At the door he turned. Rain light poured over his face from the lobby. Nia, he said, voice breaking. I'm sorry for last night. It wasn't enough. It was a beginning sandwiched between endings. The door closed behind them. The cafe fell into the hush of milk steaming and hearts racing. Kelechi exhaled slowly. They will try to make this disappear, he said. Mr. Carver is careful. Monique will say she doesn't know you, that you were obsessed with her, that you used her password. Nia tucked the laptop into her tote. The weight of it surprised her, not heavy but dense with what it could change. Above them, a clock chimed the hour faintly. I have somewhere to be at 9, Nia said. Kelechi nodded as if this was a thing they had both always known. Then we do what Adis taught us to do, he said softly. Walk in with the truth. Nia and Kelechi left the cafe together. The lobby's marble floor reflected the morning like a lake. Workers moved with purpose. A woman in a headscarf laughed into her phone. A janitor hummed a hymn from home. The security men and Jeremiah disappeared into a private elevator bank at the far end. At the main elevators, Auntie Funk's reflection appeared behind Nia, vibrant in a cobalt wrapper and gold earrings small as seeds. "You're on time," she said, relief and steel braided together in her voice. "The board came early. They thought they could rattle us. They tried to collect him," Nia said, eyes on the closed elevator where Jeremiah had vanished. "They collect what they fear," Auntie said. Her gaze sharpened. "You have something." Nia touched her tote. "Proof. And a mess." Auntie's smile held pride that warmed and steadied. "We have mops," she said. Then her eyes softened. "What did he do?" Nia swallowed. "He gave away his keys without asking who would drive." Auntie sighed, the sound old as Proverbs. "Then we will teach him how to change locks," she murmured. "If he's willing to learn." They stepped into the elevator. The doors slid shut on the lobby, the barista, the guards, the rain-washed city. The elevator hummed upward, numbers lighting one by one. Nia watched their reflection rise in the mirror. A woman in black with a simple locket, an aunt in blue, a man with a folder full of truths. At floor 39 the elevator slowed. A hand shot between the doors as they opened, forcing them wider. Monique slid in, heels clicking, red dress flawless, face composed like a mask. For a second they all stood in a small, boxy silence. Her smile was sugar sprinkled on glass. "Well," she said, eyes roaming over Nia's tote, over Kelechi's steady stance, over Auntie's unblinking calm. "Isn't this a coincidence? I was just on my way to congratulate Mr. Carver on his new efficiencies." Auntie lifted one eyebrow, regal and unimpressed. "Coincidences are what people call consequences before they land," she said. Monique's gaze cut to Nia, cool and appraising. "You look different this morning," she said. "Where are you headed?" Nia met her eyes. "Up." The elevator doors slid open to the 40th floor with a soft chime. The carpet here was thicker, swallowing footsteps. Glass walls framed a sky that had stopped crying. Down the hall, the boardroom doors stood open, light spilling across polished wood. Monique brushed past, perfume sweet and sharp. She turned back just once, smile widening. "You know," she said as if sharing a recipe, "some chairs look empty long before anyone moves them." Then she tipped her chin at the private elevator where security had taken Jeremiah. "Oh, and if you're looking for your husband?" Her laugh was delicate, bright. "You might want to hurry. Mr. Carver doesn't like delays." The private elevator dinged. Two security men stepped out, not with Jeremiah, but with a plain manila folder. The taller one nodded to Monique. She opened it, scanned the top page, and then looked straight at Nia with eyes that dared her to breathe. "Complaint filed," she said, tapping the page. "Against you. For what?" The question formed in Nia's mind an instant before the taller guard answered it out loud, addressing the air because he didn't yet know who stood in front of him. "Unauthorized access to executive systems," he recited. "Using Mr. Johnson's credentials." The hallway seemed to narrow, the carpet rise, the air thin. Auntie's hand touched Nia's elbow, not fear but anchor. Monique's smile sharpened to a point. "Looks like someone's been a very bad girl," she murmured. And from behind the boardroom doors, a voice carried clear and certain into the corridor, an older woman, strong as a drumbeat from home. "Bring in Ms. Adeyemi," the voice called. "It's time." The air on the 40th floor felt heavier than anywhere else in the building. The long corridor leading to the boardroom gleamed with gold accents and portraits of executives past, faces frozen in power. Nia's heels sank into the carpet with each step, her tote bag clutched close. Auntie Funk's palm rested lightly on her back, a steady force urging her forward. Behind them Monique followed, her red dress swaying, lips curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Two security men trailed in silence. The boardroom doors loomed ahead, dark wood engraved with the Adeyemi crest, a small sun rising over waves. The same emblem that sealed the black envelope in Nia's suitcase. Auntie Funk pushed the doors open. Inside, a dozen board members sat around a long mahogany table. The skyline of Atlanta stretched wide behind them, sunlight streaking the glass like ribbons of fire. At the head of the table sat Madame Iridi Adeyemi, Nia's late mother's most trusted business partner. A dignified woman in her 60s with cropped silver hair and skin the color of polished bronze. Her gaze was sharp, her poise regal. As Nia entered, a low murmur rippled through the room. Monique slipped in last, taking a seat beside a man in a gray suit, Mr. Richard Carver, the vice president of operations. He leaned back, eyes cold and calculating. Madame Iridi's voice cut through the murmurs. "Please close the doors." The room fell silent. Nia stepped forward. Auntie Funk stopped at the corner, folding her arms. Kelechi stood behind her, laptop still in his grip. Madame Iridi's gaze softened as she looked at Nia. "Adi's daughter," she said. You look just like her, except she never let fear sit on her shoulders. Nia steadied her breath. I'm not afraid, she said. Carver leaned forward, clasping his hands. Then perhaps you can explain why you accessed confidential systems using your husband's credentials, he said smoothly. Our internal security flagged your activity last night. A serious breach. Monique tilted her head innocently. It's such a shame, she said. She seemed like such a kind woman when Jeremiah talked about her. At the mention of Jeremiah's name, Nia's eyes flickered. Where is my husband? Carver gave a thin smile. Being questioned downstairs. Cooperation will determine his future here. A flicker of anger lit Nia's chest, but she kept her voice level. You're accusing me of something I didn't do, she said. And you know it. Carver's eyebrow lifted. Do we? Kelechi stepped forward and placed the laptop on the table. Yes, he said quietly. You do. The board members turned toward him. Madame Iridi nodded for him to continue. Kelechi opened the laptop, fingers flying over the keys. The screen projected onto the large wall display, a flood of documents, vendor lists, and payment histories. These payments, he said, pointing, were made from Horizon Foods' logistics account to a fake vendor, Meridian Solutions. The approval credentials belong to Jeremiah Johnson, but the IP traces lead to a Midtown condo registered to Richard Carver. Carver's jaw tightened. That's absurd. Kelechi clicked again. And here, ownership documents. Meridian Solutions is registered under one Monica C. Carver. He looked straight at Monique. Better known as Monique Carter. Gasps rippled through the room. Monique's smile faltered for the first time. Nia's voice cut through the tension like glass. You used my husband. You made him sign to cover your theft. Carver rose to his feet. This is slander. She's an outsider with no authority here. Who even gave you permission to enter this boardroom? Madame Iridi's expression didn't change. Sit down, Richard. He froze. Iridi turned to the board members. Let's be clear. The young woman standing before you is not an outsider. She gestured toward Nia. This is Nia Adiz Adeyemi, rightful heir to Adeyemi Global Holdings, majority shareholder, and successor named by our late founder, Mrs. Adiz Adeyemi. The board erupted into whispers. Monique's mouth fell open. Carver's face drained of color. Nia stood still, her locket glinting in the morning light. I didn't want to lead with titles, she said quietly. But since I'm accused, I'll defend myself properly. Madame Iridi nodded approvingly. Proceed. Nia turned to the room. For 2 years, I worked anonymously under the Horizon Foods division, learning how our systems actually run. I saw the gaps, the unpaid workers, the missing supplies, the false numbers. I stayed silent because I wanted to understand before I acted. She paused, eyes locking with Carver's. Now I understand too well. Carver tried to speak, but Iridi's raised hand silenced him. Nia opened the tote and pulled out a flash drive. This contains the full report, emails, transfers, approval logs. All time-stamped. Every file copied from Horizon's internal servers before they were wiped. How did you? Carver started. Kelechi's tone was calm. Because I anticipated this moment. You deleted nothing. Nia placed the flash drive before Madame Iridi. I recommend we alert the federal authorities. But first, I want Jeremiah released. The board murmured louder now. Carver looked ready to explode, but Monique put a manicured hand on his arm, whispering sharply. Madame Iridi turned to security. Bring Mr. Johnson up. As the guards left, Monique rose. This is a setup, she snapped, her mask cracking. You're all falling for some emotional story. She's using her last name to cover her lies. Andy Funk stepped forward. My child doesn't need lies, she said calmly. Truth built this company before you were even born. Monique turned on her, sneering. You think money makes her pure? Please. She's no different from the rest of us. Nia met her gaze. You're wrong. The difference is I didn't throw away love for greed. The door opened. Jeremiah entered, escorted by guards. His eyes found Nia immediately, fear, shock, and disbelief swirling together. Nia, he breathed. Carver straightened, trying to regain control. Mr. Johnson, he said briskly. Perhaps you can clarify for us what your wife was doing with your login. Jeremiah looked from Carver to Nia, confusion etched deep. My wife. He blinked, then his voice broke. What are you talking about? She doesn't work here. She owns here, Andy Funk said, stepping aside so he could see the plaque on the wall. Adeyemi Global Holdings, Board of Trustees. Jeremiah's eyes widened. What do you mean she owns? Nia looked at him, her voice soft but firm. I'm the chair, Jeremiah. The company you've worked for these past 5 years belongs to my family. The room went dead quiet. Jeremiah's mouth opened, then closed again. Carver scoffed. Convenient timing for this revelation. Iridi's tone snapped like thunder. Quiet. A moment later, a second set of security officers entered the boardroom, these ones wearing federal badges. Mr. Richard Carver and Ms. Monica Carver, the lead officer said, you're under investigation for corporate embezzlement and fraud. The room erupted into gasps and murmurs. Monique's face drained of all color. What? Who called? Anonymous tip, the officer said. Supported by irrefutable documentation. He gestured toward Kelechi's laptop. Carver lunged for it, but before he could reach, the guards restrained him. Monique tried to follow, shouting Jeremiah's name like it was a lifeline. Jeremiah didn't move. He stared at Nia, lost between shame and awe. As the officers led the Carvers out, Monique twisted in the doorway. You'll regret this, she spat. You think being rich makes you better? You're still the same broke, desperate woman he threw out. Nia didn't respond. She simply turned her face toward the window, letting the sunlight paint her profile gold. When the door closed behind them, Madame Iridi stood. I think that concludes the matter. She looked at Nia. Chairwoman Adeyemi, the company is yours to lead. The word chairwoman seemed to echo inside the glass walls. Jeremiah's knees nearly buckled. He lowered himself into a seat, hands trembling. Nia. I didn't know, he whispered. I swear I didn't know. Nia looked at him, at the man who had once been her everything. Her voice was calm, too calm. I know, Jeremiah. You never asked. Madame Iridi and Auntie Funk exchanged glances, then discreetly left the room, giving them space. Jeremiah leaned forward, tears in his eyes. Please, Nia, I made a mistake. I was blind. I thought. You thought a rich woman could make you richer, Nia said, finishing for him. You thought I had nothing because I didn't flash it. But Jeremiah, wealth isn't always gold. Sometimes it's character. He bowed his head. I see that now. Nia sighed, exhaustion etching every syllable. I don't hate you. But I can't be what I was anymore. He lifted his eyes. So that's it. Nia turned toward the door. No. That's the beginning. She paused, hand on the handle. I'm giving you a chance to rebuild, not with me but with yourself. There'll be an opening in our community development branch. You can apply, if you're ready to serve, not to climb. He nodded slowly, shame and hope colliding. Thank you, he whispered. As Nia stepped into the hallway, Auntie Funk joined her. The storm has ended, she said. Nia looked toward the window, sunlight spilling through the clouds. No, she said softly. The rain just cleaned the path. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe and share it with someone who loves powerful African stories. The morning after the boardroom chaos, the city outside the Adeyemi Tower felt washed clean, like even the streets understood something had changed. Nia stood in front of the wide glass window of her new office, 40 floors above the world she once walked through in silence. Below, cars crawled like silver beetles, and the horizon glowed faintly orange. Her name was already on the door, Nia Adiz Adeyemi, chairwoman. She should have felt victorious. Instead, her heart carried the quiet ache of endings. Auntie Funk stepped in with a file in her hand and a smile that held both pride and worry. You didn't sleep, she said. Nia smiled faintly. Power doesn't let people sleep easily. Auntie chuckled. Power doesn't take naps. You'll learn to make it work for you. Nia turned from the window. What's happening with Jeremiah? He's at the HR office downstairs, Auntie said. He didn't leave the building after the meeting. He asked to see you, but I told him to wait until you called. Nia hesitated. Let him wait, she said finally. Funk nodded slowly. Good. Let him learn patience. He spent too long running ahead of himself. She placed the file on the desk. The company is back in your hands. But remember, child, inheritance is not for revenge. It's for building. I know. As Auntie left, Nia sat at the large mahogany desk that once belonged to her mother. The scent of polished wood brought back a flood of memories. Her mother's laughter, her strong voice reading financial reports, the way she'd always remind Nia, if you build something that feeds others, you'll never hunger yourself. Nia opened the file Auntie had brought. Inside were details of the company's losses under Carver's management. Millions missing, fake vendors, community branches shut down. Her stomach twisted. The people hurt by this weren't just numbers on a sheet. They were workers she'd shared lunch with, families who depended on the paychecks Horizon Foods provided. She picked up the phone and dialed a number. "Get me Kelechi," she said. Minutes later, he walked in wearing a simple gray shirt, his expression calm as ever. "Madam Chair?" he greeted with a smile. Nia gestured for him to sit. "You helped me expose them. I owe you more than I can repay." Kelechi shook his head. "No, ma'am. You did what your mother would have done. I only showed you what was hidden." "I want you back," she said simply. "As the new operations director." His eyes widened. "You mean?" "Yes. Someone who understands the ground, not just the glass ceilings." He grinned, humbled. "I accept. And thank you, Nia. Truly." As he stood, she added, "But we're not done cleaning house yet. Reopen the community branches. Reach out to the factory workers. Pay what's owed to every man and woman who lost their jobs under Carver's regime." Kelechi nodded firmly. "Yes, Madam Chair." After he left, Nia sank back into the chair and stared at the city again. There was satisfaction, but no peace. "Not yet." The intercom buzzed. Her secretary's voice came through softly. "Ma'am, Mr. Jeremiah Johnson is still waiting outside. He's been there for over 2 hours." Nia sighed. "Send him in." The door opened moments later. Jeremiah stepped in slowly, holding his cap in both hands like a child about to confess. His once crisp shirt was wrinkled, his face pale with sleeplessness. He looked around the office, the tall bookshelves, the golden plaque, the breathtaking view, and then at her. "So this is where you've been hiding," he said, voice low and trembling. "I wasn't hiding," Nia said. "I was working." He nodded, shame settling deep. "I deserve that." He stood there awkwardly, unsure whether to sit. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. He sat, twisting the cap in his hands. "I thought about everything you said yesterday," he began. "About greed, about love. You were right. I let ambition blind me. I wanted to prove I was somebody." Nia folded her hands. "You already were somebody, Jeremiah. You just didn't believe it unless someone richer told you so." He flinched, then nodded. "I know. And I'm sorry, Nia. Truly. If I could take it back, if I could undo what I did, throwing you out that night," he trailed off, pain tightening his voice. "It's the biggest regret of my life." Silence stretched between them. "Do you love her?" Nia asked suddenly. He looked up, startled. "Monique?" "Yes." He shook his head instantly. "No. I don't even think she ever cared about me. She wanted access, nothing more. I was just the fool in her plan." Nia leaned back, studying him. "You were foolish," she said. "But even fools can learn." He looked up hopefully. "Does that mean you'll—" "No," she cut him off gently. "It means I don't hate you. But love isn't a door I can just reopen because you knocked again." He looked down, voice breaking. "I understand." Nia hesitated, then slid a folder toward him. "This is a job offer. Community Development Branch, Regional Coordinator. You'll rebuild what men like Carver destroyed. It's honest work, and it's where you'll learn humility." Jeremiah blinked, clearly stunned. "You'd still give me that chance?" "Yes," she said softly. "Because that's what my mother would have done. But make no mistake, this isn't pity. It's purpose." He nodded slowly, eyes glistening. "Thank you, Nia. You don't owe me kindness, but you still gave it. I'll work hard. I swear it." "Good," she said. "Start by signing the offer letter downstairs." As he rose to leave, he turned back. "You know, when I walked you out that night in the rain, I thought I was walking into a better life." His voice cracked. "But I didn't realize I was walking away from the only woman who ever truly believed in me." Nia's throat tightened, but she said nothing. When he was gone, she sat for a long moment, staring at the empty doorway. Then she whispered to the quiet office, "Belief has to start with you, Jeremiah." Later that day, as the sun dipped low, Nia visited the factory where Jeremiah once worked. The workers gathered around her, curious, whispering as she walked through the wide iron gates. They recognized her, some from the community kitchens, others from the volunteer days when she'd wear jeans and gloves and stack crates beside them. "Chairwoman Adeyemi," one man called, wiping sweat from his forehead. "You came in person?" She smiled. "I always will." She stood on a crate and addressed them all. "From today, Horizon Foods will be rebuilt, not on greed but on gratitude. Every worker who lost their pay or was laid off under Carver will be reinstated with full compensation." A roar of cheers filled the air. Some workers clapped, others shouted blessings. A few women wiped tears. Nia raised her hand. "But I also want you to remember something. Every one of you deserves respect. Not because of who signs your paycheck but because of what you give every day. Her voice softened. This company belongs to all of us now. And I will never forget that. The applause grew louder, echoing across the compound. Standing near the back of the crowd, Jeremiah watched silently, his chest rising and falling with emotion. For the first time, pride and humility shared the same space inside him. He whispered almost to himself, "She really is her mother's daughter." That evening Nia drove to her mother's gravesite, a quiet hill overlooking the city. The marble stone was engraved with the Adeyemi crest and the words, "To build is to live forever." Nia knelt and placed fresh lilies beside the headstone. The wind whispered through the grass, soft and familiar. "I did it, Mama," she said. "They tried to destroy what you built, but I stood my ground." Her voice faltered. "You were right. Love can make us foolish, but wisdom turns that pain into purpose. I see that now." A faint smile crossed her lips. "And Mama, you were right about Jeremiah too. Some people need to lose everything before they find themselves." As the last light of sunset bathed the hill, Nia rose, brushing her palms together. The future stretched wide before her, not glittering with wealth but glowing with quiet strength. And somewhere deep in the city, Jeremiah opened his offer letter, tears blurring his vision as he whispered, "I'll earn this." The next few weeks moved like wine through dry leaves, fast, noisy, and full of quiet revelations. The scandal that had rocked Horizon Foods spread through the city like wildfire. Newspapers called it, "The Hidden Heiress Takeover." Headlines screamed, "Betrayed wife turns out to be billionaire," and "Greedy executives brought to justice." Everywhere Nia went, people stared at her, not with pity but awe. Yet fame wasn't what she wanted. What mattered was restoring what had been broken. She spent her mornings in board meetings, her afternoons in factories and farms, her evenings signing documents that would breathe life back into the community branches. She worked side by side with Kelechi, who often reminded her to eat, drink water, and rest, a habit she hadn't mastered since stepping into her mother's shoes. One cloudy Thursday she arrived unannounced at the company's main warehouse, wearing a simple navy jumpsuit and white sneakers. Workers froze when they saw her, then scrambled to stand straighter. "Don't stop working," she said with a grin. "I came to help, not to be worshipped." The laughter that followed was nervous but genuine. She rolled up her sleeves and joined a group stacking boxes of rice. Sweat dampened her curls, but she felt alive. The workers smiled. Seeing the boss working beside them was something they had never imagined. When she finished, she turned to the foreman. "How's morale?" The man, older, lean with a graying beard, nodded slowly. "Better, ma'am. Since you came, pay's been steady. People feel safe again." He hesitated, then added softly, "And we heard you gave your husband a second chance. Not many would have done that." Nia smiled faintly. "It wasn't a second chance with me. It was a second chance with himself." The man nodded. "Still, it says something about you." As she walked away, she saw Jeremiah in the distance, wearing a reflective vest, clipboard in hand, guiding a group of new recruits. He was different now. He laughed easily, thanked workers, even helped them load crates. Gone was the arrogance that once filled his stride. When he saw her, he straightened, uncertain whether to approach. She waved him over. "How's your first week?" He smiled shyly. "Busy, but good." She nodded toward the workers behind him. "They respect you?" "I'm trying to earn that," he said honestly. "Some of them still look at me like I'm a ghost from the old system." "Keep working," she said. "Respect doesn't come from a title. It comes from your hands." He nodded. "Nia, thank you again for this. Every day I come here, I remember that night in the rain. I can't undo it, but I can live better because of it." Nia's eyes softened. "That's all anyone can do." They stood for a moment, the hum of forklifts and distant chatter filling the silence. Then she added, "You know, Jeremiah, forgiveness isn't the same as reunion." He met her gaze. "I know. I'm not asking for that anymore." "Good," she said gently. "Because you have a new purpose now. Don't waste it chasing the past." He nodded, smiling sadly. "Understood, ma'am." She blinked at the ma'am, then laughed softly. "You sound like one of the workers." "Maybe that's the point," he said, grinning. That night, as Nia returned to her penthouse, she felt lighter. For the first time, peace didn't feel like something far away, it sat beside her, quiet and patient. The following Monday, Nia received an unexpected call from the city's mayor. "Chairwoman Adeyemi," the mayor began, "we'd like to honor Horizon Foods and the Adeyemi Foundation for your contributions to job creation and women's empowerment." Nia smiled modestly. "That's not necessary, Madam Mayor. We're just doing our duty. Oh, it's necessary, the mayor said warmly. Your story inspired thousands of women who thought silence was survival. You gave them a new kind of voice. The mayor paused. There'll be a ceremony next month. Please come and bring your team. After the call, Nia leaned back in her chair, overwhelmed. She thought of her mother's words again. Build something that feeds others and you'll never hunger yourself. Kelechi entered just then holding a folder. Ma'am, I think you'll want to see this. He handed her a printed email from the company's investors. Read. To the Adeyemi board, under the new chairwoman's leadership, profit margins have increased by 27% within the first quarter. Horizon Foods is stable again. She exhaled, relief washing over her. We did it, she murmured. Kelechi smiled. We're not done. We're just starting. They shared a quiet moment of triumph before he left her to her thoughts. That weekend, Nia attended a charity event hosted by the Adeyemi Foundation, a gala her mother had started years ago to support single mothers and widows. The ballroom sparkled with gold lights, but Nia's gown was simple, an elegant green dress that flowed with her steps. Midway through the evening, Auntie Funk took the stage. Tonight, she said into the microphone, we honor the new generation of leaders, those who turn pain into purpose. And no one embodies that more than my niece, Nia Adeyemi. The crowd applauded, rising to their feet as Nia walked up to the podium. Her eyes glistened with gratitude. She took the microphone, voice steady but full of emotion. I stand here today not because I was born wealthy, but because I learned what true wealth means. It isn't money. It's kindness. It's integrity. It's learning to stand back up when life throws you down. The audience listened in silence, captivated. I lost everything I thought mattered, she continued softly. But in that loss I found something greater, myself. And if my story teaches you anything, let it be this. Never measure your worth by who leaves you. Measure it by how you rise. The hall erupted in applause. Some people wiped tears. Cameras flashed. Auntie Funk beamed like a mother hen. At the back of the room, Jeremiah watched quietly, unseen by most. He wore a simple black suit, humility etched across his face. As she spoke, he smiled, not with longing but pride. When the event ended, he approached her, waiting until the crowd thinned. You were incredible, he said quietly. Thank you, she replied. He hesitated. I didn't want to interrupt your piece. I just wanted to say that, seeing you here, leading like this, it makes me want to be better. Not for you but because of you. She nodded. That's growth, Jeremiah. He smiled, then bowed his head slightly before walking away. Nia watched him disappear into the night, a gentle calm in her heart. For once, no pain followed, just the soft knowledge that some endings don't break you, they free you. The next morning, headlines called her, the Rain Queen of Resilience. Messages poured in from women across Africa and America. Widows, single mothers, abandoned wives, all thanking her for reminding them that silence wasn't strength. Nia read every message, smiling through tears. Then she whispered to the empty room, Thank you, Mama. You were right. Some storms don't come to destroy, they come to clear the path. And outside, the dawn broke golden over the city, reflecting off the Adeyemi Tower like a promise kept. 2 months passed, and peace seemed to finally find its home inside Nia's life. The company was thriving again, workers were smiling, and the city now spoke of her name with both respect and awe. But the truth about healing is that it rarely comes without one last test. That test arrived on a humid Friday morning. Nia was in her office reviewing reports when Kelechi knocked softly and entered, a troubled look in his eyes. What's wrong? She asked immediately. He placed a printed letter on her desk. It's about Jeremiah. Her heart skipped. What happened? Kelechi sighed. He's been accused of leaking internal data to the press. The investigation team found messages from his company email sent to a journalist at the Daily Report. They're claiming he shared files about Horizon's restructuring process. Nia's stomach tightened. That can't be right. Jeremiah wouldn't? She stopped herself. Wouldn't he? Kelechi continued carefully, the content isn't damaging, but it includes confidential payrolls and factory stats. Enough to cause noise. Nia rose slowly from her chair. Where is he now? Downstairs. Waiting to see you. She hesitated then nodded. Send him in. A minute later, Jeremiah entered the room, his orange work vest folded over his arm. He looked different, leaner, calmer, but today his face was pale. Nia, he began softly. Before you believe whatever's in that letter, please listen to me. She folded her arms. I'm listening. He took a breath. Yes, I sent those files, but not to harm you or the company. The reporter who received them runs a column that highlights African businesses uplifting communities. He wanted to showcase how Horizon rebuilt after the corruption scandal. I thought it would help public trust. You didn't have permission, Nia said. Her voice wasn't raised, but its quiet hurt more than anger. That data wasn't yours to share. I know, Jeremiah said, guilt heavy in his tone. I just wanted people to see the good being done here, to see you. Her expression softened for a second, then hardened again. Flattery doesn't erase recklessness. You could have compromised everything we've worked for. I'm sorry, he whispered. I wasn't thinking about policy or protocol. I was thinking about redemption. Nia sighed and turned toward the window, the skyline stretching endless before her. Jeremiah, you keep trying to prove your worth by doing something dramatic. Sometimes true redemption is quiet, it's in consistency, not grand gestures. He nodded, eyes wet. You're right. I'm still learning. She turned back to face him. You will face a disciplinary hearing. I won't interfere. You'll have to stand for your actions and accept the outcome. That's what accountability means. He swallowed. Understood. Nia softened her tone slightly. You've made progress, Jeremiah. Don't let this mistake drag you backward. Own it. Learn from it. That's all I ask. He nodded slowly. I will. As he turned to leave, she called after him, Jeremiah? He stopped, hand on the doorknob. She walked around the desk and stopped a few feet away. For what it's worth, I'm proud of how far you've come. Don't let shame ruin what you've started rebuilding. His lips trembled. That means more than you think. He left quietly, and the office fell into a heavy silence. 2 days later, at the internal hearing, the committee ruled Jeremiah's actions as a breach but not malicious. He was suspended for 2 weeks without pay. When he heard the verdict, he nodded without protest. It was fair. What surprised everyone was what he did next. During his suspension, Jeremiah volunteered full-time at one of Horizon's community kitchens in South Atlanta. Every morning, he served meals, carried sacks of rice, and cleaned tables until his clothes were soaked with sweat. When Nia visited unannounced one afternoon, she found him kneeling beside an old woman in a faded wrapper, helping her tie the strings of her grocery bag. Thank you, my son, the woman said, touching his shoulder. He smiled. No need to thank me, Mama. Just eat well tonight. Nia stood quietly at the doorway watching. She could hardly believe this was the same man who once valued money more than humanity. When he finally noticed her, he straightened quickly, embarrassed. Chairwoman. She smiled faintly. Don't call me that here. He rubbed his neck, smiling awkwardly. Force of habit. You've been busy, she said, nodding toward the tables. I figured if I can't work in the company right now, I can still serve its people. Nia tilted her head. And what has that taught you? He paused thoughtfully. That leadership isn't about power, it's about presence. Sometimes the best leaders are the ones washing the dishes. She smiled. You're finally learning. I had a good teacher, he said quietly, meeting her gaze. She turned slightly, hiding the small smile that crept across her lips. Keep doing this, Jeremiah. It suits you. Later that evening, Auntie Funk joined Nia at her home. They sat on the balcony overlooking the glowing city lights, the hum of traffic distant and soft. I saw the reports, Auntie said. Your ex-husband has become something like a hero down at the kitchens. Nia chuckled softly. He's trying. I'll give him that. Funk leaned closer. And you? How do you feel seeing him change? Nia hesitated, then answered honestly. Proud and sad. Because I wish he had learned this before he broke us. Funk nodded. Sometimes people must lose you to find themselves. Nia sighed. Maybe. But I don't think I want him back. I found peace in being whole on my own. And he smiled knowingly. That's real power, my child. Not the kind that sits in a boardroom, the kind that sits quietly in your chest and says, I am enough. They sat together in silence, the wind brushing Nia's curls as she looked toward the stars. A week later, the company's Community Impact Day arrived. Horizon Foods closed all offices and sent staff into neighborhoods to serve meals, plant trees, and donate supplies. It was the company's way of giving back. At the main site downtown, hundreds of volunteers lined up, including Jeremiah. Nia stood on a small stage, microphone in hand, addressing them all. Today, she said, we celebrate not profit but purpose. We've seen storms, betrayal, and rebuilding, but we stand stronger because we stood together. The crowd cheered. She smiled and continued, we're not defined by what we lose, but by what we do after the loss. Her gaze found Jeremiah in the crowd. He smiled proudly, clapping the loudest. Every hand here today, she continued, represents a promise to keep building the kind of world our children deserve. Applause thundered through the park. As she stepped off the stage, Jeremiah approached, holding a small wrapped box. "What's this?" she asked. "Something I made," he said shyly. "A reminder." She opened it. Inside was a small glass plaque with an engraving. "Some storms wash away weakness and leave strength behind." Her eyes softened. "It's beautiful." "I meant what I said before," he murmured. "You changed me, Nia. You didn't just save a company, you saved a man from himself." She looked at him for a long moment, then said quietly, "Then do me one favor." "Anything." "Keep saving others." He smiled, eyes shining. "I will." That night, Nia sat alone in her office watching the city lights dance. She thought about how far she'd come, from a woman thrown out in the rain to a leader admired across nations. And yet she felt no pride, only gratitude. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from the Horizon Foods official account. Community Impact Day, 15,000 meals served, 50 new jobs created, one city changed. Nia smiled, whispering to herself, "Mama, your sun still rises." Comment your thoughts below and tell us where you're watching from. Globe showing Europe, Africa. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who believes in second chances. The weeks that followed were bright and calm. Horizon Foods had become the model for corporate renewal. Magazines praised the Adeyemi legacy, and Nia's face appeared on talk shows and covers she never imagined gracing. Yet deep inside her, she felt a quiet stirring, like the calm before another storm. It started one Monday morning when Kelechi burst into her office, looking unsettled. "Madam Chair," he said, setting down a brown envelope. "This arrived through a private courier with no sender name. It's addressed directly to you." Nia frowned. "From who?" He shook his head. "The guard said the man who dropped it looked like he'd been traveling for days. He left before anyone could stop him." The envelope was old, edges frayed, sealed with the same crest her mother used, the rising sun. Her heart skipped. Only family or old partners of her late mother used that symbol. She broke the seal and pulled out a letter written in neat cursive. "My dear Nia, if this reaches you, then certain truths have waited too long to be told. You believe you inherited everything from your mother, but she never told you the full story of the company's founding. There was another partner, a silent one. His name was Emmanuel Johnson." Nia froze. The last name hit her like thunder. "Johnson." The letter continued. "He was brilliant but poor. Your mother gave him a chance and together they built Adeyemi Global Holdings. But when greed entered the board, he walked away, choosing peace over power. Your mother kept his name off the records to protect him and his newborn son from corporate enemies. That son grew up under a different name." Nia's hands trembled as she read the final lines. "That son is Jeremiah Johnson. You two share more than a marriage, you share a legacy. He is heir to a portion of this empire. The bloodline you thought ended with your mother did not. It continues through both of you. Do what's right, my daughter. Family is deeper than pain." The letter slipped from her fingers. Kelechi, alarmed by her silence, asked softly, "What is it?" She looked up, eyes wide. "Jeremiah, he's my late mother's co-founder's son. He's entitled to part of the company." Kelechi blinked. "You mean he's part of the Adeyemi legacy?" "Yes," she whispered. "And neither of us knew." She leaned back, stunned. The room seemed to spin. The betrayal, the pain, the years, they all suddenly shifted shape. Her ex-husband hadn't just walked into her life by chance. Fate had tied their stories together long before they ever met. Later that day, she called Jeremiah to her office. When he walked in, she saw that familiar nervousness in his eyes, the same one from the night he had thrown her out, except this time, it came with humility. "You asked to see me?" he said quietly. "Yes." She slid the letter across the desk. "Read this." He frowned but took it. As his eyes moved down the page, his expression changed, from confusion to disbelief, then to shock. "This can't be true," he said, voice shaking. "My father's name was Emmanuel Johnson. He worked for a logistics firm before he passed. But I never knew he was connected to this company." "It's true," Nia said softly. "He co-founded Adeyemi Global Holdings with my mother. She must have hidden his identity to protect your family." Jeremiah sat heavily in the chair opposite her, staring at nothing. "All this time, I thought I was just another worker struggling to climb. But I was walking through a company my father helped build." "Yes," Nia said. You have a right to part of this legacy. He shook his head. I don't want that. She frowned. What do you mean? He looked up, eyes full of guilt. I destroyed enough already. I don't deserve to inherit anything from you or your mother. Nia leaned forward. Jeremiah, this isn't about deserving. It's about truth. My mother built this empire with your father. The least we can do is honor that. He stared at her, then whispered, You'd really share this company with me? After everything? She nodded slowly. Yes, because it was never just mine. Tears filled his eyes. You're unbelievable, Nia. No, she said with a faint smile. Just doing what's right. Days later, they stood together before the board. Nia announced the revelation publicly, reading the letter aloud. Gasps filled the room as she declared that Jeremiah Johnson would be reinstated, not as an employee, but as a co-owner, heir to his father's 25% founding stake. Jeremiah stood beside her, head bowed. I don't deserve this grace, he said. But I promise to honor it. Madame Iridi smiled from across the table. Then you both have done what your parents could not, united legacy with humility. The room broke into applause. That evening, Nia and Jeremiah visited her mother's grave together for the first time since her rise. The sky was streaked with gold, the air thick with peace. Jeremiah placed white lilies beside the stone. I never knew my father worked with you, he murmured. But thank you for trusting me through your daughter. Nia smiled softly. Mama would have been proud. Not of our wealth, but of how we grew from pain. He turned to her, eyes filled with gratitude. You could have let pride win. But you didn't. Why? She looked at the horizon, thoughtful. Because pride doesn't heal families. Grace does. They stood in silence, side by side, not as ex-lovers, not as rivals, but as two pieces of a story that had finally found its missing page. Weeks later, Jeremiah began overseeing Horizon's new mentorship program, training young men from poor communities in logistics and management. Nia launched the Adeji Foundation for Women in Leadership, named after both their parents, Adiz and Emmanuel. And though they lived separate personal lives, their partnership and purpose became legendary. One evening, after a long board meeting, Jeremiah stopped by her office. We've done it, he said proudly. 500 youths employed this month. She smiled. That's your father's blood working through you. He nodded. And your mother's wisdom through you. They shared a quiet laugh, the kind that comes after years of storms finally clearing. Before leaving, Jeremiah paused at the door. You know, Nia, sometimes I wonder if maybe life had to break us apart so we could build something bigger together. She met his gaze. Maybe that's what love really is, when even after it dies it still grows something good. He nodded slowly. Then I guess we found our purpose. She smiled. We did. That night, as Nia closed her office blinds and looked out over the glittering skyline, she whispered, Mama, Papa Johnson, your children kept the promise. The sun still rises. And somewhere in the quiet city below, the lights of Horizon Foods glowed like a heartbeat, steady, strong, and eternal. The following year arrived with new colors, golden dawns, calmer skies, and a peace that finally felt permanent. The city knew the Adeyemi name again, but now it was more than a name. It was a symbol of grace, unity, and rebirth. Inside the Adeyemi Tower, the walls gleamed with framed photos of community projects, scholarships, and families smiling beneath banners that read, From the people, for the people, Horizon Foods. Nia walked through the lobby that morning, every staff member she passed greeting her with a warm, genuine, "Good morning, Chairwoman." But there was something different in her today, something softer. For the first time in months, she wasn't rushing to a meeting. She was attending the dedication of the new corporate wing, the Adeji Center for Innovation, a name created from both parents' legacies, Adiz and Emmanuel. At the entrance stood Jeremiah, now more confident, dressed in a crisp gray suit with the Horizon emblem pinned neatly to his lapel. When he saw her, his face broke into a respectful smile. "You're early," he said. She smiled back. "You sound surprised." "I thought chairwomen always show up fashionably late," he teased lightly. "Not this one," she said. "I like seeing things before the world claps for them." They both laughed softly, the sound easy and familiar now, without old tension, without pain. Inside the hall, reporters gathered, cameras flashing. The new wing gleamed like a promise. Walls of glass, energy-efficient systems, labs for food research, and classrooms for underprivileged youth to learn agriculture, logistics, and business management. When the mayor took the stage, she addressed the crowd. "Today we celebrate not just the expansion of a company, but the healing of a story. A woman cast out in the rain turned pain into purpose. A man who once fell to pride rose again through humility. Together they proved that legacy is not built by money, it's built by mercy. Applause thundered. Nia took the podium next. The room fell silent. She looked around, her heart full. Exactly a year ago, she began, I stood in a boardroom where truth tore my world apart. I thought I had lost everything, my marriage, my peace, my identity. But what I didn't know was that the storm was clearing a path to purpose. She paused, meeting Jeremiah's eyes for a brief second before continuing. My mother, Adiz Adeyemi, and Jeremiah's father, Emmanuel Johnson, built this empire together on faith and friendship. That bond was lost for decades, but today, through forgiveness, it's restored. The audience leaned in. Let this place stand as proof that mistakes can birth miracles, that brokenness can still build bridges, and that forgiveness doesn't make you weak, it makes you unstoppable. The crowd rose in a standing ovation. Tears glistened in eyes across the room. Auntie Funk wiped her cheeks, whispering, Adiz, you'd be proud of her. Nia lifted a pair of golden scissors and turned to Jeremiah. Will you do the honors with me? He hesitated, then nodded humbly. Together they cut the ribbon. Cameras flashed. Cheers erupted. The Adeji Center for Innovation officially opened. Later that afternoon, after the guests left and the reporters packed up, Nia and Jeremiah stood alone in the quiet corridor of the new wing. The sunlight poured through the glass, bathing them in warm light. It's beautiful, Jeremiah said softly, his voice echoing slightly. It's ours, Nia replied. Built on what our parents started and what we refused to let die. He turned to her, thoughtful. Do you ever think about how strange it is, that all this came from the worst night of our lives? Nia smiled faintly. That's how life works, Jeremiah. Sometimes the rain that drowns your comfort waters your destiny. He nodded, eyes glistening. You always did see deeper than me. And you've finally learned to listen, she teased gently. He chuckled. I had a good teacher. For a moment they stood in the light, silent but connected, not as lovers but as survivors who rebuilt what was lost. Nia looked at him seriously. There's something I've wanted to tell you. He nodded. Go on. She took a deep breath. I forgive you completely. Not halfway. Not for appearances. Fully. His eyes widened. Nia? Because if I carried bitterness, I'd poison the very legacy we're trying to honor. You heard me, yes. But that pain gave birth to strength I never knew I had. So, thank you, for showing me who I could become. Jeremiah's voice broke. I don't deserve that grace. Maybe not, she said softly. But grace isn't earned. It's given. He nodded slowly, his lips trembling. Then I'll spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of it. She smiled gently. Don't prove it to me. Prove it to yourself. Months later, the story of Nia and Jeremiah became a business school case study titled Reign and Redemption, the Adeyemi Johnson Legacy. Students learned how betrayal birthed integrity and how love, though wounded, could still transform into legacy. Horizon Foods expanded into 5 new countries, employing thousands and funding countless social programs. Nia remained chairwoman, and Jeremiah served as director of innovation, quietly but faithfully. And every year, on the anniversary of that stormy night, Nia would drive out to the small duplex where it all began. The house had been sold to another family, but the street still smelled like wet rain and redemption. She would stand under the same old porch light and whisper to herself, Thank you for throwing me out, Jeremiah Johnson. Because you threw me into destiny. That night she returned home, sat on her balcony and gazed at the city. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jeremiah. We made it, Nia. 2 parents smiling from heaven tonight. She smiled, replying simply. The promise kept. As the city lights shimmered below and the wind danced softly through her curls, Nia felt complete. Not because she had power or wealth or titles, but because she had found peace. And for the first time since that rain-soaked night, she whispered a quiet prayer, not for revenge but for gratitude. Lord, she said softly, thank you for the storm. Comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Globe showing Europe, Africa. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share this story with someone who believes that storms don't destroy, they reveal purpose. Sparkles, thank you for watching. Jeremiah threw out his wife for a rich mistress, unaware she is a billionaire heiress who owns the company where he works. Sparkles.